Here are a pair of crossovers. This is the Subaru XV and that's the Ford Focus Active. And they're crossing over from the small car space into the off-road world with these chunky tyres, body cladding, and roof racks that would make any nature enthusiast giddy with adventure, as well as the jacked up ride heights that make SUVs so appealing. They're also very much the 5-door hatchbacks they're based on, like the Subaru Impreza in the XV's case, or the Ford Focus for the Active. So they benefit from decades of design, safety, and technology evolution. But what we want to know is whether their off-road bravado is worth the trouble or the cash. So stick around to find out which one of these cars is truly riding on higher ground. From the outset, the Subaru XV seems like the car to beat. Not only is it from a brand that spent decades perfecting all-wheel drive, it's into its second generation that's just received a midlife update to keep it fresh in a fast-growing category. The cabin is nothing new for this facelifted model, carrying over the screen-laden workstation where you have not one or two, but 3 screens. It's utilitarian, but it's also very practical in some respects. The center stack is cleanly divided into its separate functions. Down here you have storage, and then you have cooling and heating above that, and up top you have entertainment through the multimedia screen. But it is confusing that when you adjust heating and cooling down here, you have to look up towards this screen buried in the dash to see what temperature you're actually achieving. This particular premium variant, which starts at $34,590 before on-road costs, comes with dual zone climate control, leather accenting on these seats, a leather steering wheel, and premium safety gear, including active cruise control, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, and reverse auto braking. Up back, passengers are going to be pretty happy because you have more under-thigh support on the seats, you get good knee room, good elbow room. Headroom just gets by, but the upside of that is you have an elevated seating position, so it's easy to see out the front of the car. Meanwhile, you also get a center armrest with cup holders that complement the ones in the door, but you don't get vents or any sort of power supply. Given the space in the rear seats, it's particularly surprising to see how little the boot is. Subaru claim there are 310 litres of cargo area, but it is shallow because underneath the car, there's a rear differential for the all-wheel drive, and there is a temporary space saver. If you need more luggage room, however, you can fold down the rear seats. Keeping to Subaru tradition, the XV packs a 2-litre boxer engine with horizontally opposed cylinders. It makes 115 kilowatts and 196 newton meters, and pairs that with a CVT transmission. Normally, a CVT transmission is enough to turn driving enthusiasts away, but it's not that bad. It responds obediently to any gear shifts through the paddles, and it steps through the rev range like it has gears, keeping the engine on the boil. Subaru puts a lot of buttons on the steering wheel, and among them is one that changes the engine mapping. But it doesn't matter what mode you have it in, when you try to hurry it along, the engine can feel a little bit laboured, though it does like to rev. Although your left knee sits up against the transmission tunnel, Subaru's created a really nice driving position and there's good steering wheel adjustment. Luckily, the suspension has been retweaked and the ride is remarkable for a small car. It glides over bumps without much fuss, and there's no trade-off in body control either. The XV's safety systems are a little more obvious than other brands. For instance, it plays chimes when cars cut into your radar, and it devotes a lot of real estate to its safety systems in the center screen. While 6 centimeters doesn't sound like much when it comes to ground clearance between the XV and the Focus, tracks like this, it might save you a front bumper. Another weapon in the XV's off-road arsenal is X-Mode, which changes electronic systems in the transmission to improve traction at low speeds, but it also offers hill descent control, which helps you negotiate down a hill at a set speed while it takes care of the brakes automatically. Ford doesn't make as big of a deal out of the Focus Active since it's not a standalone model, but now that it's only one of 3 variants in the Focus range, it should get a lot more attention from intending buyers. Ford's designers arguably had a harder job toughening up the Focus Active because of its windswept and svelte lines, and because the panoramic sunroof deletes the roof racks, the silver accented body cladding and the lower ground clearance means it doesn't look as ready for the rough track. The Focus Active gets a few things to differentiate it from other Focuses in its range, like these specific dash inserts, this cloth with the specific A stitched into it, and this stitching here. But the $30,990 it costs to buy one buys you a fair bit of kit as well. For instance, you get dual zone climate control, 8-inch touchscreen, the smartphone mirroring and wireless charging. But this particular car has some extra options like a panoramic sunroof, metallic paint, and an active safety pack to bring it in line on price with a Subaru XV. Up back, it's a similar story to the Subaru XV. You get good knee room, there's decent elbow room, but because you sit a bit higher, you also start to run out of headroom. This time, there's no center armrest, there are no floor mats, but you do get a 12-volt power supply, 2 luggage nets, and around the cup holders and the door cards, there's a felt finish. The key advantage of front-wheel drive for the Focus is it crushes the Subaru XV on boot space. It has 65 more litres of cargo area and it has a temporary space saver. You can fold the rear seats, but not completely flat, which might make loading some luggage tricky. It only takes a couple of corners to reveal that the Focus has the more athletic DNA. It just feels so much more natural in corners. The steering's lighter, it's sweeter, and it turns in more keenly. The rotary dial gear selector presents a functional nightmare in car parks when you're trying to rush gear selections from forward to reverse. Ford's off-road systems extend as far as what is a trail mode in the drive mode menu. It seems to turn off traction control, keeps the revs steady by selecting a certain gear, and you get a little compass on the center screen, which is sort of cool. The Ford is pleasant out on the highway, but without any active cruise control to maintain a set distance to the car in front of you, it makes the safety package for $1,250 an absolute must. The Ford Focus is slightly comfier on the non-sealed bumpy road, but you have to take it slower because it doesn't have as much ground clearance. Much of the Ford's athleticism comes down to the fact that it is front-wheel drive. This means it is lighter and therefore nimbler than a Subaru's heavier all-wheel drive laden chassis. The Ford's 3-cylinder engine is well calibrated with the 8-speed automatic transmission and is both smooth shifting on the highway and eager and responsive at low speeds. The Focus Active gets multi-link rear suspension, just like the ST line, so it is sophisticated in the way it works the road. It's slightly firmer than the Subaru, and with the extra ride height, it has more vertical movement than other Focuses, but it is a nice thing to be in for a large amount of time. At the end of the day, these two are closely matched. The Focus has more responsive handling and acceleration, whereas the Subaru rides better. On the highway, the Focus has the better safety systems, whereas the Subaru has the comfier seats. Price also fails to split them, so it's fitting that a true difference emerges off-road, and it's there where the Subaru's all-wheel drive traction and extra ground clearance give it a more sure footing. Since they're crossovers, I think this should weigh heavily, and therefore the XV leaves the Focus in its dust.